Every night, at exactly 3:11 a.m., a woman appears in the window of the abandoned apartment across the street. She doesn't move. She doesn't blink. She just stares straight at my window like she's waiting for me to notice her. But when I finally called the police, they told me something I still can't understand. That apartment was sealed shut 20 years ago, and the woman who used to live there was murdered inside that very room that I moved into my new apartment on a rainy Wednesday night, the kind of night where the city feels half asleep and every streetlight hums like it's holding a secret. The place wasn't much. One bedroom, cracked paint, a leaky faucet, but it was cheap, and after my breakup, I just needed somewhere quiet to start over. My window looked directly across to an old apartment building. Most of it was empty, windows boarded, curtains torn, except for one. Apartment 3B. Its window stood wide open, like a single unblinking eye in a skull full of shadows. The first time I noticed her, I thought I was imagining things. It was around midnight. I had been unpacking boxes when I glanced out the window and saw a pale figure standing there. A woman in what looked like an old white nightgown, her hair dark and heavy, her face hidden in the dim yellow glow from the streetlight below. She was just standing there, completely still, facing my building. At first, I thought maybe someone had broken in, or maybe she was a squatter. But then I blinked, and she was gone. I told myself it was the light, or my tired eyes playing tricks on me. But that night, at 3:11 a.m., I woke up suddenly. No noise, no reason. Just the sharp, strange feeling that someone was watching me. I turned toward the window, and there she was again. Same spot, same stillness. Only this time, she was closer to the glass, her face pale and pressed slightly forward, as if trying to see through the darkness into my room. My stomach dropped. I sat frozen for what felt like minutes, heart pounding so loud I thought she might hear it. I grabbed my phone, ready to take a picture, but when I looked up again, the window was empty. The next morning, I asked the landlord about the building across the street. He looked at me like I'd said something offensive. "You don't want to mess with that place," he said. "Used to be the Wren Apartments. Fire in 2004. Third floor sealed after. They say a woman died in 3B, but no one's supposed to be in there anymore." Then he added, almost whispering, "If you're seeing lights in that window, best to keep your curtains closed." That night, I couldn't stop myself from looking. Curiosity overrode fear. The window was dark until the clock hit 3:11. And then, she was there again. Same spot, same blank stare. Only this time, she raised her hand and waved. The next morning, I told myself it was just my imagination. Coincidence. Some old reflection tricking my tired brain. But that explanation fell apart when I realized something was different about my window. The inside of the glass, the side facing me, was covered in faint, foggy smudges, as if someone had pressed their fingertips against it from the other side. I wiped it clean, forcing a laugh to hide the unease clawing at my chest. "Just condensation," I muttered. "Just the cold." But I couldn't shake the image of her. That motionless woman across the street, raising her hand like she somehow knew me. That night, I promised myself I wouldn't look. I made tea, turned on the TV, tried to drown out the silence with meaningless noise. But the thing about fear is that it's patient, it waits. Every shadow in the room felt heavier. Every creak in the walls sounded deliberate. And when the clock on my phone hit 3:10, I felt that same cold drop in my stomach again. My hands were shaking before I even stood up. I don't know why I looked. Maybe I just needed to prove I wasn't crazy. At 3:11, she was there. This time, I saw her face, or what was left of it. Her eyes were wide and sunken, like two hollow pits of darkness. Her skin looked gray, stretched too tightly across her skull, and her mouth hung slightly open. Not in a scream, but in something worse. A smile. My throat went dry. I stumbled back, knocking over my mug. The woman's head tilted, slow and deliberate, as if she could see me flinch. Then, as if to confirm the impossible, she mimicked me. 1 second after I moved, I raised my trembling hand. She raised hers. I stepped backward, She did too. It was like looking into a distorted mirror that knew it wasn't supposed to exist. I ran to my light switch, flipped it on, and in that split second of brightness, she vanished. The window across the street was empty again, curtains gently swaying in the night breeze. I closed mine, heart pounding so hard I could barely breathe, and stayed awake until the sun came up. The next day, I couldn't focus on anything. Every sound felt amplified. Footsteps in the hallway, a door creaking somewhere above me. When I finally stepped outside for air, I looked up at the old building. The window to 3B was open again, but this time something new hung there. A faint white curtain fluttering in the wind, though I'd never seen one before. My eyes followed the motion until I noticed something else. Behind the curtain was her hand, pressed flat against the glass. On the inside, I froze in the middle of the street, the noise of the city fading around me. The air smelled faintly of smoke, the kind that lingers long after a fire dies. My mind kept replaying the landlord's words. That floor was sealed after the fire, so how could there be anyone inside? That night, I taped my curtains shut, but deep down, I already knew it wouldn't help. For 2 nights, I managed to avoid looking at the window. I covered it with a blanket, taped the edges, even pushed a shelf in front of it. Anything to keep that view out of sight. But the thing about darkness is, it always finds a way in. The 3rd night, I woke to a faint tapping sound. Soft at first like raindrops, then heavier, more deliberate. Tap, tap, tap. The sound was coming from behind the blanket, from the glass. My heart thudded painfully against my ribs. I tried to convince myself it was wind or a loose branch, but the rhythm was too steady, too human. I sat frozen on my bed, staring at that dark, covered shape, waiting for the sound to stop. Then it did. Silence. And that's when I heard something worse. A whisper. At first it was muffled, like someone speaking from another room. I leaned forward, holding my breath. The voice was faint, a woman's, and though I couldn't make out the words, the tone was pleading, desperate, like someone begging to be let in. I stood slowly, one shaky step at a time, until I was close enough to feel the cold coming through the blanket. My hand hovered over it. Every instinct screamed at me not to touch it, but curiosity, again, overpowered fear. I pulled one corner of the blanket back. Just a little. Nothing. Just my own reflection in the faint glow of the streetlight. My tired face staring back at me. I almost laughed from relief. But then, my reflection blinked. I didn't. My entire body froze. My reflection blinked again. Slower this time. And then smiled. A wide, unnatural grin spreading across a face that looked exactly like mine but somehow older, emptier. Behind it, faintly, was her, the woman, standing in the background of the reflection, her head tilted, eyes fixed directly on me. My chest seized with terror. I screamed and yanked the blanket back down, stumbling away until my back hit the wall. The whispering stopped. So did the tapping. But the silence that followed felt worse, like the air itself was listening. The next morning, I didn't go to work. I didn't answer my phone. I just sat in my living room, staring at the floor, trying to make sense of what was happening. Around noon, someone knocked on my door. 2 sharp knocks. I flinched so hard my coffee spilled. When I opened the door, a maintenance man stood there. "Your upstairs neighbor called," he said. "She says there's been strange noises coming from your apartment at night." I stared at him, confused. "There's no one above me," I said. He frowned. "You're in 2C, right? There's a 3C right above you." "No," I whispered. "That floor's sealed off." He looked at me for a long second, then stepped back. "Sir, there is a 3C. I was just up there last week." My throat went dry. "And what did you see?" The man hesitated. His eyes shifted toward the window behind me. "Just a woman," he said softly, "standing in the window, like she was waiting for someone." By the 4th night, sleep was impossible. Every sound in the apartment made me jump. The pipes groaned like distant voices. The floor creaked as if someone was pacing right above me. and every time I passed the window, I could feel that same invisible pressure, like eyes pressing into the back of my skull. I had to know. I couldn't live across from that building and pretend I wasn't seeing what I was seeing. So, I did the stupidest thing I've ever done. I decided to go inside. It was almost midnight when I crossed the street. The rent apartments looked worse up close. Blackened bricks, warped metal railings, windows sealed with rusted sheets. The front door hung open just enough to show a sliver of darkness inside. The air smelled like mildew and something faintly sweet, like flowers left too long in water. I stepped inside, flashlight in hand, my breath fogging in the cold air. The lobby was rotted and silent, filled with the echoes of a life long gone. Peeling wallpaper hung in curls, and the faint outlines of fire damage scarred the walls. My light flickered as I climbed the stairs, each step groaning under my weight. Dust floated in the beam like tiny ghosts. When I reached the third floor, I hesitated. The hallway was half collapsed, its ceiling split open, exposing cracked wooden beams. There were doors on either side, some burned, others nailed shut. And at the end of the hallway was 3B. The door was blackened, warped, the number barely visible. Someone had painted a red X across it, the kind rescue workers mark after a fire. My heart hammered as I reached for the doorknob, expecting it to be locked. It wasn't. The knob turned easily, almost too easily, and the door creaked open with a long, aching sigh. The air that rushed out was stale and freezing. Inside, the room was frozen in time. Charred furniture, walls blistered by heat, an old lamp melted into the floor. But the strangest part was the window. It was clean, perfectly clean, not a trace of dust or soot. It looked new, and in front of it stood a chair. I walked closer, my flashlight shaking in my hand. Something caught my eye on the wall. Faint scratches carved into the burnt plaster. Words, written over and over again, in jagged, desperate lines. She sees me. The words stretched across the wall, hundreds of them, all identical, all written by a trembling hand. My light flickered once, twice, and then died. The darkness swallowed everything. I froze. I could hear my heartbeat echoing in my ears. Then, from somewhere inside the room, came a slow, creaking sound, like wood shifting under weight, like someone standing up. When my flashlight finally flickered back on, I aimed it at the chair. It was empty, but the window, the reflection in the window, wasn't. There, standing directly behind me, was the woman, and she was smiling. I didn't breathe, couldn't. The woman in the reflection stood inches behind me, her face faintly visible through the hazy glass. Her hair hung damp and tangled, her lips parted in a faint, crooked smile. For a heartbeat, I told myself it wasn't real, that my mind was just finishing the nightmare it started. But then her hand lifted, slow and deliberate, and pressed against the inside of the glass. My flashlight shook violently as I turned, swinging the beam behind me. Nothing, just the burnt chair, the cracked walls, the stench of smoke and rot. My lungs burned. I spun back toward the window, and she was closer now. The glass bulged faintly, like something pressing against it from the other side. Her pale face distorted, her mouth opening wider, wider, until it wasn't a smile anymore. It was a scream. The glass cracked. I stumbled backward, hitting the wall. The crack spread like a spiderweb, the sound sharp and alive. Then everything went silent again. Not a single creak, not a breath of wind. The building itself felt like it was holding its breath. I pointed the flashlight back toward the window, and the reflection was gone. I didn't wait. I ran. Down the hallway, down the stairs, tripping over debris, my light bouncing wildly. Every shadow felt alive, every echo a footstep behind me. When I burst through the front door and into the street, the cold air hit me like ice water. My chest heaved, my heart hammering like it was trying to escape. But when I looked up at my apartment window across the street, I froze. The light was on, and standing in my window was her. She was inside my apartment. I couldn't move, couldn't think. The woman across the street raised her hand again. The same slow, familiar wave. But now she wasn't across from me. She was where I lived. The very room I'd tried to keep her out of. I stood there in the street, every part of me trembling, until the light in my apartment suddenly went out. Just like that. Total blackness. I sprinted upstairs, half out of panic, half out of disbelief. My front door was still locked. Nothing broken. I pushed it open and flicked on the lights. The room looked normal, too normal. Curtains sealed, no footprints, no sign of anything. But something was wrong. The air was heavy, thick with the smell of burned dust. I stepped toward the window and reached for the curtain. My hand brushed the glass, and it was warm. Not the faint warmth of sunlight or a radiator. It felt like skin, like the heat of someone's palm pressed there moments ago. I jerked my hand back. My reflection in the window stared back at me, eyes wide, terrified. Then, as I watched, my reflection raised its hand. But I didn't. I staggered back from the window, gasping like the air itself had turned to ash. My reflection stood perfectly still, its raised hand frozen against the glass, eyes locked on mine. Then, slowly, its mouth began to move, forming words I couldn't hear. I leaned closer despite everything in me screaming not to. The reflection's lips shaped the words again, clearer this time. "Let me in." I stumbled backward, knocking over a lamp. The bulb shattered, and for a split second, the flash of light lit something behind me. A shape, a shadow, a woman's outline, standing in the corner of the room, head tilted, hair falling across her face. I turned, but she was gone. The air pulsed with static, like the moment before a thunderclap. My phone buzzed on the floor. Unknown number. My fingers shook as I answered it. Static. Then a whisper. "Why did you come back?" The voice was hers. The same whisper I'd heard behind the blanket nights ago. I dropped the phone. It didn't hang up. The whispering continued, growing louder, layered, one voice becoming two, then 10. All of them repeating the same phrase. "Why did you come back? Why did you come back?" I clamped my hands over my ears, stumbled toward the bathroom, slammed the door shut. The mirror above the sink reflected only darkness, as if it had stopped obeying light. I stared at my own faint outline, waiting for it to move again. My reflection twitched, just once, then began to smile. The same crooked smile, the same one I'd seen on her. The lights flickered. For half a second, I saw both of us, me and her, standing side by side in the reflection. And then she stepped out. There was no sound, no scream, just the cold rush of air as everything went black. When I woke, it was daylight. The room was silent, my curtains half open, sunlight spilling onto the floor. For a brief, blissful moment, I thought it had all been a dream. But then I noticed something odd. The blanket I'd taped over the window was gone. The tape was peeled cleanly from the wall, and the glass was spotless, polished, gleaming. And in the reflection, I wasn't there. The image staring back wasn't me, not exactly. It was close, but not right. The hair was slightly longer, the eyes darker, the faintest trace of a smile pulling at the mouth. I stepped closer, heart hammering. My reflection tilted its head. Then it lifted a hand and waved. My phone buzzed again. A message this time. Unknown number. One sentence. "Thank you for letting me out." Across the street, the old building stood silent. The window in apartment 3B was empty for the first time since I'd moved in. But when night fell, neighbors said they saw something new. A dim light glowing in my window. And if you look closely, really closely, you might still see her standing there, watching, waiting for someone else to look back.